The moment we launched this game, we thought it was just another creepy internet myth, but then we heard it, that unsettling laugh, echoing through the dark hallways. My stomach dropped instantly. This wasn't just a game anymore, this was Cartoon Cat. And believe me when I say this, you'll want to see how this ends. The screen faded in, and we were standing in what looked like a deserted shopping mall. Not the bright, modern kind you'd go to for a weekend hangout, but one of those abandoned places you'd see in a creepy urban exploration video. Cracked tiles stretched across the floor, glass was shattered everywhere, mannequins with broken faces leaned against the walls, and the whole place had that feeling like it was alive but holding its breath. The escalators were frozen mid-step. Lights buzzed overhead, and every shadow seemed to stretch a little too long, like it was reaching out to grab us. We walked forward slowly, each step echoing way louder than it should. I tried to laugh it off, saying, "Okay, this is just atmosphere, nothing scary yet." But deep down, my chest was already tightening. The thing about horror games is that you know something's coming. It's not a question of if, but when, and that's what makes every second worse. The deeper we went, the more wrong it felt. Somewhere in the distance, there was a sound, not footsteps, not breathing. It was this faint dragging noise, like claws scraping against tile. Every time we stopped moving, it stopped too. But as soon as we took another step, it started again, closer, heavier, sharper. I swear I could feel the vibrations through the controller. We turned a corner, and that's when it happened. A shadow stretched across the wall, bending unnaturally, too tall, too long, twisting like rubber. At first, I thought it was just a glitch, some weird bug in the game engine. But then the shadow's head tilted, and slowly, very slowly, a grin appeared. A grin that didn't belong on any human face. We froze, completely froze. My hands were sweating so badly, I almost dropped the controller. And then we saw it, those massive glowing eyes, wide and unblinking, staring straight through us. And below them, that smile, Cartoon Cat's smile. It didn't move at first. It just stood there, half hidden in the shadows, its limbs bent at impossible angles, like some grotesque parody of a cartoon. And then it twitched, just a tiny movement, but enough to make my stomach flip. We tried to back away slowly, not making a sound, hoping maybe the game would glitch out and it would just disappear. But then it tilted its head again, and that grin grew wider. That's when we knew it wasn't waiting. It was hunting, and then, out of nowhere, Cartoon Cat lunged forward, sprinting on all fours faster than anything we'd ever seen in a game. The sound of its claws pounding against the floor filled the mall. My heart jumped into my throat. We ran, fumbling with the controls, crashing into walls, trying desperately to get away. But the worst part, we could still hear it laughing. That laugh wasn't goofy or silly like a real cartoon character. No, it was warped, distorted, like static mixed with screaming. It echoed through every corridor, chasing us, getting louder and louder, like it was right behind us. And then, just as we thought we lost it, the screen flickered black for a split second. When it came back, Cartoon Cat wasn't behind us anymore. It was right in front of us. And that's when everything started to spiral completely out of control. I swear my hands froze on the controller when it appeared in front of us. Cartoon Cat wasn't just blocking the path, it was crouched low, its long arms stretching across the tiles like ropes of black rubber, teeth gleaming in that horrifying grin. For a split second it didn't move, it just stared, and in that silence I felt my pulse slam against my chest so hard I thought my mic would pick it up. Then the laugh came again, louder this time, bouncing off the walls of the mall, echoing like it was everywhere at once. I couldn't tell if it was in my headphones or in my actual room. That's how real it felt. My cope, Lair whispered, "Don't move," like standing still was going to save us. But I didn't even have the courage to argue. We just stood there, staring at this thing, waiting for it to make the first move. And then it did. Cartoon Cat's arms snapped forward, claws dragging against the tile with sparks flying, and its body unfolded to full height. Taller than any doorway, its head nearly brushing the flickering lights. It started walking towards us with this exaggerated, bouncy stride, like some demented parody of an old-timey cartoon walk cycle. My brain screamed run, but my body didn't move until it was almost too late. We sprinted, darting through the nearest hallway, but here's the worst part. Cartoon Cat didn't chase us like a normal monster would. It didn't just run behind us. No, every time we looked back, it was gone. The sound of its claws faded only for it to reappear in front of us again, like it was bending reality itself. 1 second behind us, the next second ahead, that smile always waiting. At one point, we ducked into a side store, hoping to hide. The room was filled with broken mannequins and overturned racks, the air thick with dust. I crouched in a corner, trying to stay quiet, my character breathing heavily in-game. And that's when the scratching started again, not loud this time, slow, deliberate, like it knew exactly where we were but was choosing to toy with us. The lights in the store began to flicker. Each time they flashed off and back on, the mannequins looked different. At first, they were just still, then one was tilted, then another looked like it had moved a few inches closer. My friend whispered, Are they moving?" I wanted to say no, to brush it off as our imagination. But then one mannequin had the grin, that impossible, toothy grin. The lights went out completely for 3 seconds. Just 3. But when they came back, Cartoon Cat was standing right in the middle of the store, perfectly still. Its head tilted all the way to the side like its neck was broken, eyes glowing in the dark. We screamed and bolted out of the store, knocking over racks, smashing through the door. I could barely see where we were going, just sprinting blind through the corridors. And the whole time, that laugh echoed behind us, warping, stretching, almost like it was inside our heads instead of the game. Finally, we stumbled into what looked like the food court. Chairs scattered everywhere, tables flipped upside down. For a moment, there was silence, no claws, no laughter, just the sound of our characters catching their breath. We thought maybe, just maybe, we'd outrun it, but then the screen started to distort. Static tore through the image, the colors bleeding like an old VHS tape. A deep rumbling sound filled our headphones, shaking like the whole game was collapsing. I shouted, "Don't move, don't touch anything," as if that would fix it. And then, through the static, we saw it. Not Cartoon Cat this time, but something else, something worse. Because what appeared on the screen next didn't look like part of the game at all. At first, I thought my game had crashed. The screen was nothing but static, like an old television struggling to hold a signal. But then the static shifted, warped into shapes, long, stretched arms, oversized eyes, jagged teeth flashing for half a second before vanishing again. My friend whispered, "That's not in the game files, is it?" His voice cracked, and honestly, I couldn't blame him. The distortion finally cleared, and we were no longer in the food court. Somehow, the game had transported us somewhere completely different. A long, dimly lit hallway stretched ahead, endless and narrow. The walls lined with old cartoon posters that looked like they'd been pulled straight from the 1930s. Big-eyed animals, cheerful grins, all drawn in that old-timey rubber hose animation style. But the posters weren't right. Their smiles were stretched too wide, their eyes too hollow, and as we walked past, I swear the posters started to follow us, their heads tilting, eyes shifting just slightly, like they were alive. That's when the music started, faint, scratchy, like it was playing from an ancient gramophone, a cheerful little tune out of tune, skipping like a broken record. Every note made my skin crawl. I tightened my grip on the controller, forcing myself to keep moving forward, though every step felt heavier, like the game was pulling us deeper into its nightmare. We reached the end of the hallway, and there was only one door. It was cracked open, with a faint glow seeping through. I hesitated. My gut screamed, "Don't open it." But of course, in games like this, there's only one choice. We pushed through. Inside was a massive theater, rows of dusty red seats, facing a giant projector screen. The projector was already running, casting flickering images onto the wall. The reel showed black, and white cartoons, looping animations of animals dancing and smiling. But halfway through, the animals began to twist, their bodies elongated, their smiles stretched into razor-sharp grins. And then, one by one, they started to melt into shadows, their eyes hollowing out until all that remained was darkness. Suddenly, the film burned out, the screen turning white, and then words appeared, scrawled in messy handwriting, "You can't escape the show." We just sat there, frozen. And then, as if on cue, the entire theater rumbled. The seats creaked as though someone was moving. Not just one seat, all of them, rows and rows of them. My friend whispered, "No, wait, they're not empty." I turned the camera slowly, and my blood ran cold. Every single seat was filled. Dozens of shadowy figures sat in silence, all facing the screen. Their bodies were vague like silhouettes, but their faces, every single one, wore that same cartoonish grin. Wide, too wide, teeth glinting in the darkness. The projector flickered again, and the shadows began to rise, one by one, their heads turning toward us in unison. And then, in the back of the theater, we saw it. Cartoon Cat, standing tall, towering over the others, its smile wider than ever. The laugh came again, but this time it wasn't just in the game. It felt like it was echoing through our room, vibrating through the speakers, deep in our bones. I had to rip one headphone halfway off just to breathe, and then the shadows started to move toward us. Slow at first, then faster, sprinting down the aisles, clawing, reaching, crawling over the seats to get closer. We panicked, fumbling with the controls, trying to find an exit. But the doors slammed shut, the screen burst into static, and all we could see was Cartoon Cat's face zooming closer and closer, filling the entire screen. And just when it looked like it was about to break through the glass and drag us inside, the game cut to black. Silence. We sat there, staring at nothing, not sure if it had actually ended, or if something worse was about to begin. The black screen held for way too long, long enough that we weren't sure if the game had crashed or if this was part of the design. I moved the mouse, tapped the keys, nothing, just silence. I was about to restart when, out of nowhere, a voice crackled through the headphones. It wasn't a normal game voice. It wasn't a narrator or a scripted line. It was distorted, garbled, like someone whispering directly into my ear through a broken microphone. And even though the words were twisted, I swear it said my name, my actual name. I froze. My stomach flipped. My friend went, "Wait, did you hear that too?" But the voice didn't say his name, just mine, again and again, each time a little clearer, like it was learning how to speak. Then the screen flickered back on, but it wasn't the game anymore. It was my desktop, my real desktop, my icons, my wallpaper, everything, except one new folder was there. Bright red, labeled in all caps, "Look behind you." I laughed nervously, brushing it off like some clever in-game trick. Okay, funny, right, very meta. But my laugh didn't last long, because the folder blinked, and then opened on its own. Inside was a single picture file, and when it popped open, my blood turned to ice. It was a distorted image of my room. My actual room, same desk, same chair, except in the corner behind where I was sitting was Cartoon Cat. We both screamed. I ripped off my headphones, spun around in my chair, nothing, just my empty room. My friend was panicking through voice chat. No way, no way, that's impossible. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely put the headphones back on. The game cut back in like nothing had happened, dropping us into another environment. This time, it wasn't the mall or the theater. It looked like an abandoned playground, rusty swings swaying with no wind, a merry-go-round creaking slowly on its own. Everything looked drenched in that old sepia filter, like a twisted children's cartoon, and on the jungle gym, sitting casually as if it belonged there, was Cartoon Cat. It wasn't moving, just perched, its massive frame folded unnaturally to fit on the bars, head tilted, grin stretched wider than ever. My friend whispered, "Don't get closer," but we didn't have a choice. Every path we took curved back to the same spot, forcing us nearer and nearer to it. The closer we got, the louder the music became, that same broken gramophone tune from before. Only now, there were voices layered under it. Children laughing, children screaming, both at the same time, the sound tangled together until it didn't even sound human anymore. When we were finally standing right in front of the jungle gym, Cartoon Cat lifted its head, slowly. Deliberately, and in that warped cartoon voice, it said something we'll never forget. "You can't log out." We bolted, running across the playground, slamming the escape key, trying every command we knew. Nothing worked. The game ignored everything, locking us inside, and then Cartoon Cat began to crawl after us, its body bending and twisting in ways that defied physics, like rubber hoses whipping across the ground. Its arms stretched, claws slamming into the dirt, dragging it closer. No matter how fast we moved, it was always inches behind us, that smile unshakable. We finally made it to the edge of the playground, and a gate appeared, glowing faintly like it was the exit. We sprinted through, hearts pounding, thinking maybe we'd escaped, but when the screen loaded the next area, my jaw nearly hit the floor. Because the place we spawned into wasn't part of the game anymore. It looked exactly like my room. When the new level loaded, I couldn't breathe. My character was standing in a room that looked exactly like mine. Same walls, same desk, same half-empty soda can sitting next to the keyboard. Even the posters on the wall were the same. It wasn't just similar, it was my room, pixel for pixel, as if the game had somehow scanned it. I leaned back from my monitor, staring at the screen, then glancing over my shoulder to compare. My friend's voice cracked through the headset. "Dude, that's your setup. How is that even possible?" I didn't have an answer. My palms were sweating, the controller slipping as I tried to convince myself this was some kind of elaborate mod or prank. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. In the game, my character's perspective shifted slowly, panning toward the corner of the room. And there it was, Cartoon Cat, standing perfectly still in the same corner that existed in my real room. That massive grin cutting across the dark, its glowing eyes locked directly onto me. Not my character, me. I actually turned in my chair, staring at the real corner behind me, half expecting to see it standing there in the flesh. Nothing, just shadows, but for the first time all night, I couldn't tell which version of reality was safer, the one on my screen or the one around me. We tried everything, Alt F4, Task Manager, even pulling at the internet cable. Nothing worked. The game didn't close. The cat didn't move, it just stood there in silence, its grin unshakable. I whispered, "What happens if I get closer?" My friend shouted, "Don't even think about it." But in the game, my character moved on its own, step by step. The closer I got, the more the screen distorted, static crawling across the image, colors bleeding. And then the sound began again, not the laugh this time, something worse. Breathing, heavy, distorted breathing. And here's the part that made my blood run cold. It wasn't coming from the headphones, it was coming from behind me. I froze, my heart was pounding so hard I couldn't hear anything else. I didn't want to turn around. Every instinct screamed, "Don't look." But the sound got louder, heavier, closer. I finally spun around in my chair, and again, nothing. Just my room, empty. But when I turned back to the screen, Cartoon Cat was gone. The corner where it had been was empty now. In the game and in real life, my friend whispered, "Where is it? Where is IT?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because the next thing I heard wasn't the laugh or the breathing. It was a knock. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Not in the game, not through the headphones, at my actual door. I whipped my head toward the sound, every hair on my body standing on end. My friend kept asking what happened, but I couldn't even form words. My microphone was still on, but all he could hear was my shaky breathing. I didn't want to check the door. I didn't want to move. When I finally glanced back at the monitor, new text had appeared on the screen, written in jagged, hand-drawn letters, "Don't open it." And that's when everything truly fell apart. I sat frozen in my chair, staring at those words on the screen. "Don't open it." My throat was dry, my hands trembling, but then another knock came. Louder, closer. My friend was panicking in my headset. "What's happening? What do you hear?" I couldn't even explain. All I managed to whisper was, "It's here." The game screen flickered again, the letters dissolving into static. The camera angle shifted, pointing straight at the door of my in-game room, and in perfect sync, I turned my head toward my real door. Both doors, virtual and physical, waiting in the game. The knob began to rattle, slowly at first, then violently, like someone was trying to break in. My real door stayed still, but my gut told me it wouldn't for long. My friend screamed through the mic, "Don't you dare open it," but I wasn't the one moving. The game took control. My character's hand reached for the knob, trembling. The screen shook violently as the door creaked open, inch by inch, revealing nothing but darkness. For a moment it was empty, just a void, and then that grin. Floating in the shadows, glowing eyes piercing through the dark. Cartoon Cat stepped forward, limbs unfolding like ropes, body bending as if bones meant nothing. Its head tilted, filling the doorway, its grin stretching wider than the frame itself. I slammed the keyboard, trying to close the game, trying anything, but the cat didn't care. It leaned down, closer to the screen, until its face filled the entire monitor. And then, in that distorted, cartoonish voice, it spoke again. "I told you not to look." Suddenly, the screen exploded into static, and my room went pitch black. The monitor, the lights, everything shut off at once. I sat there in total darkness, my headset buzzing with nothing but static. My friend kept shouting my name, his voice warping, cutting in and out, like he was being pulled away from me. And then silence, no game, no friend, no sound, just the heavy weight of my own breathing. I didn't move for what felt like forever. When the power finally flicked back on, the game was gone. No desktop icon, no folder, nothing. Like it had never existed. My friend texted me later, asking if I was okay, swearing he saw the cat's face on his own screen before everything cut out. Neither of us slept that night. And here's the part that really gets me. When I woke up the next morning, I walked into my living room, and on the wall, scratched deep into the paint, were 3 claw marks. Now, I don't know if the game was some kind of curse, or if Cartoon Cat is more than just Trevor Henderson's creation. But one thing's for sure, I'm never playing that game at night again, and if you ever hear that laugh echoing behind you, don't turn around. Because, trust me, you won't like what you see.